Going on a bit earlier than planned and already coughing. Wonderful, wonderful, great start. Hello, everyone. I've been privy to Baron Strawberry's grand debates on the MENT questions, the MQ as it's extraordinarily widely known. Yes, you know, the classic one when everything you just replace it with meant, the meant at the end of a word, and then you can decipher what the hidden powers of the world wanted to tell you. The most famous one obviously being entertainment, which is to enter and hold the mind. And obviously it's rubbish. Hello, everyone. But no, meant at the end of words is not from the Latin mens mentis. It is as it tends to happen with Greek and Latin words, you tend to lob off the suffixes. So the mentum, which would have been there, just lacks the and you get the ment, like in French. So yeah, monumental. Exactly, Jason. Oh, Bill Hicks says, guess who's back again? Posh is back. A fellowship companion. So, I'm actually writing a fugue of that intro, you know, but I am also constantly unhappy with everything. So it's taking its sweet time, but it will be finished soon, I hope. I'm never happy with the exposition part, but I'll force myself to do it. So nobody lobs off my suffix. If I ever get merch, I'll sell a T-shirt that says "Steer clear of my suffix." Okay, so we haven't been here for a while. I've been a guest on Jim Bob streams twice since I last went live. And a lot has happened since then. I don't even know what to comment on anymore, because I always develop things like, oh, I should say this live, and then I don't do a live stream. And yeah. Are we allowed to say Christ is King in here? I'm not sure. You know, that's very problematic. You're encouraged to say Christ is King. I mentioned this, I think, on Jim Bob streams. Like in Slavic languages, we don't use the term king. We use the term tsar, which technically means emperor. And is etymologically derived from Caesar. So, you know, that's very fun, that Christ is, you know, the Caesar of the universe. But yeah, we'll be talking about that. Christo ere. Yes. The phrase itself is more used by Catholics, I believe. We definitely share the sentiment. But yes, it's rather strange. Oh wait, someone's mentioning baptism. Posh, 40 days, let me show that. 40 days until my family is baptized and 47 until the marriage. Well, thank God for that. Please pray for us if you can. Absolutely. These are the news we love to hear. People getting baptized, people getting married, people having children whom they can then baptize. Wonderful. O Christos Zike Vasilevi. Yes, John MC coming in hot with the Greek. So again, thank God for the good news. Let's see. Sentimental. Yeah. Ray Nevillus. Have I told you that there's a song in Rome Total War, like the OG one, called oh goodness, it's not called Gladiator. What's it called? Divinitus. Yes, Divinitus. And it's so, and this will, play a part in what I'm trying to say tonight. It's obviously a song written and made to be performed in this anglicized form of Latin, because otherwise, it doesn't rhyme and nothing makes sense if you pronounce things correctly. And I think the example I like to give with how different things are is when Jacob Rees-Mogg pronounced the Latin proverb nemo judex in causa sua as nemo judex in causa sua. And I was stumped, like, what on earth does that mean, until I did the reverse engineering necessary to remember. I actually knew that by heart. Back in high school, we had tests and exercises for remembering these Latin phrases and proverbs. But yes, I remember that because it's a fun song. It's a very beautiful song. One of my favorite pieces of video game music. And when I learned to play it and everything, I remember hating the fact that I had to sing it in this anglicized English. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So yeah, that's great. But back to our topic, and we can light a cigarette for that. This is rather disconcerting. The fact that I understand the faction that says that this can be used in malicious ways. The phrase itself is not only acceptable, it's perfectly true and desirable to use. I understand people can use it in this chest-thumping way. That seems very Pharisaic to me. I don't like it, not one bit, when people chest thump over it. But it is a true statement, and therefore should not be shied away from. I've listened to David Wood and Apostate Prophet comment on it, and they're not the best when it comes to certain topics. But sort of saying, well, what do we do? We can't allow this to be hijacked by undesirable groups, obviously, but you don't want to allow it to also be, therefore, taboo to use it because it's apparently a dog whistle. And to be honest, I just don't care if people want to take it the wrong way, because people will go out of their bloody way to take things the wrong way. Anyhow, on Twitter, some twit was arguing with me that I was anti-Catholic for the post, the meme I made. Like the KJV Bible is evil because it's written using the Roman alphabet, which was made by perverting the Greek alphabet. So it's actually it's literally a parody on certain low IQ takes people have to criticize Catholicism, and apparently the Catholics would have been offended. So again, I just don't care. Apostate Prophet is a gay Zionist. I mean, there is no other kind of Zionist, so a bit pleonasmic, but yeah. I don't personally dislike him. It's just obvious that there are people who delve into a certain set of topics. Like if you're, and he is primarily an anti-Islam content creator, as an apostate Muslim, and then you sort of allow that to color everything you're doing. And I don't like that one bit. It shouldn't be. Ironically praising Christ. Okay, sounds fine. Yes, I ironically praising Christ. I wouldn't be. I wouldn't be very much in favor of that. Off-topic question: do Serbian Orthodox Christians have to quit poached ferret and barbecued hedgehog for Great Lent instead of beer? Forgive me. Barbecued hedgehog. That's a good one. Yeah. It is especially the delicacies that you should give up during Lent. The shock that Jim Bob had when I told him I've never had steak in my life. I think if I said, yeah, I never had steak, but I did eat, infants, he would probably have reacted, wait. What do you mean you haven't had steak? But beef isn't, we have different types of beef here in the Balkans. It's mostly pork and lamb that is eaten here. So no, I've never had steak. The one time I knew I tried beef was when we bought this. Usually the minced meat is just pork, but we bought like half pork, half beef, and it was vastly inferior to the just pork. So I've never thought of it as missing out on anything. You and garbage dumps. Hey Pasha, I attend the Serbian Orthodox Church. Any tips at learning the language for a native Polak? You're a good languager. Languager, like in Serbia, we would say jezičar, which just tends to mean you talk a lot more than is tolerable. Tips on learning. So if you speak Polish, I mean, it is a massive transition. I knew when I was starting to learn to read Polish, which is about as far as I got before I realized I spread myself too thin again and wouldn't make any progress on the other languages. So Polish was one of those I had to give up. But yes, there are substantial differences. I suppose the best way to start is reading. If you have Church Slavonic used, that's quite a bit different. But the Serbian language is at least very, very easy to learn to read. The Cyrillic script, the Latin one as well, but the Cyrillic script is literally designed for it to be one phoneme, one grapheme, so you can learn to read it in like an afternoon. The grammatical differences are going to be difficult. Polish has different grammatical cases. You not only have you have 6, but you've got a different set. So yeah, not sure actually. I would just go ahead and read things that I have, like get Lord of the Rings or something that you already have in a language that you speak, and then read it, parallel with another. So to start developing things, if you're trying to build a language speaking ability, you need to start from the very basics. But once you get through the basics, you really need to start going into conversations and read things like newspapers, which is a big problem nowadays. But you need to go somewhere where people are speaking the proper language. A lot of times people move abroad and then pick up the local way of speaking, and that can cause a lot of problems. But I would suggest, if you've got something that you like reading, especially popular things, like that's why I gave the suggestion Lord of the Rings, buy it in Serbian and then have a parallel so you can try to develop a feel for it. Beef is a superior protein. I have never even invoked the differences of nutritional value. It's just that I will not allow myself to stop eating pork and then start eating bagels. See what's happened to America with that approach. There's a theory that the North won the Civil War because the rebel army was fed on pork, but the damn Yankees had beef. Well, the Yankees have beef with someone all the time, but not sure about that. People like to make those things up often, when they want to promote something. Oh, did you know they only ate, this particular breed, type of corn? Oh, and that's why they want buy 3 tons. Polish is the messiest looking language. Yeah. Just and so unnecessarily complicated in its writing. But to be fair, the Serbian I speak of, the writing system was developed in the mid 1800s, so it's not that far away. But I think they need to do something about it. I'm pretty sure the W's in Polish are pronounced like Z's in English. No, they're pronounced like V in English. The same thing as in German. I used to paint with acrylic paints. Does that help? Well, unless you snorted them, not particularly. Vojokokrav? Okay. How difficult has it been not to be able to eat the meat on the weasel's skull this land? Yeah, just keep trying to ruin my ability to keep throwing these delicacies into my mind, and that's going to help. Cheers for the tips. You're welcome, but I'm not sure I've contributed much. It's very difficult to when you learn similar languages, you should always bear in mind how much your own language is going to pull. So that's why you need parallels, so you don't get too much overlap. You can make the distinction as clear as possible, although obviously the one you're used to, especially if it's your native language, is always going to stay with you. And I actually find that quite comforting, but also needs to be accounted for. One good thing about Polish orthography is that even though it looks complicated at first, it's regular and consistent. Oh yeah, that's the biggest problem with French. It seems like they're messing with you. Why would you do this to anyone? Why would you write 15 letters and pronounce like 3? Posh, your stream is looking a lot smoother now. So Keenan or Kanan, if you missed the episode, turns out I needed to up my resolution to get better, more smooth streaming. I have absolutely no idea how that works, but my teacher in school told me that English is the hardest language to learn. But why is it the most spoken language around the world? To quote Norm MacDonald, to me it's the easiest. English isn't hard to learn the grammar of, to grasp the grammar of English. The biggest problem with English is to learn to read it. It's also a very, very rich language because it's so eclectic. It just pours into itself all sorts of things, sometimes merely by, conquest, why most English words are of French origin, but also plenty of Norse, very little Celtic, but there is Celtic. And then a whole slew of reforms of writing and pronunciation and yada yada yada. So everything is also a giant mess. But the grammar itself is pretty bloody easy to learn, unless you've had contact with like Slavic languages. You don't know what a difficult language is. Yeah. What's the Serbian equivalent of no cap? Not sure, because I'm not sure what no cap means. I've seen it used, but I can't put my finger on it exactly so I can translate it properly. Acrylics, Cyrillic, yeah, I got that one. I can't believe they allow Serbian extremists on this platform. Well, who says they do? Again, Serbian extremist, another pleonasm. I think English is extremely versatile. You can create words on the spot and your interlocutor can easily understand you. Yeah, it's also omnipresent. You've got films, you've got TV series, cartoons, music, plays, books, no shortage of it anywhere, even video games. The interactive part of video games is so massive when it comes to learning it. Pasha, aren't you giving up smoking over Great Lent? Soon I'll be undergoing a quest to give up smoking in general and not coming back to it. But no, it's one of the few things I'm so used to doing. But God willing, by a month or so, I will have stopped completely. Pigs are nasty animals. I like the taste of pork, but pigs are omnivores, will eat anything, which is probably why pork is an inferior protein, like scavenger fish are not a good food fish. Well, the lobster people are going to be very upset with you for saying scavengers aren't good sources of protein. French is hilarious for that reason. French is hilarious for multiple reasons, and they're even self-aware of how ridiculous some of the rules are. English is the original Esperanto, kind of, but I also wouldn't just say it's just a blob. French orthography preserves regularly an older pronunciation of the word from about 1,000 years ago. Not a useless thing to know if you want to study deeper. Yes, although the phonetics have changed quite drastically, and they put consonants at the ends of words just for fun. My favorite one is when I remember learning that for plural you just add the S at the end, but you don't pronounce it. Oh, thank you so much. You know what people need when they're learning a language? Lots of ambiguity. No cap, not lying. Really? I thought it was more no joking. Yep. Pigs are clean, pork hater cope. Okay. Pork is way better than steak. It's tender 100% of the time. Yes. What do you think of Ottez Raffaello? I like him quite a bit. People have no context here, so I'll just say generally a positive view of him. Although I'm not all that familiar with his work, I catch every other thing or so. Went to my first liturgy on Sunday, thank God for that. Thanks to you, JB Dyer, etc., for exposing me to Orthodoxy. I love watching videos from Father Spiridon. He is fantastic, truly. And reading books from Seraphim Rose, etc. Yes, Father Spiridon is probably the best source in the English-speaking world for Lent, during Lent, I mean, because it's so devoid of any even political connotations or anything, so it allows you to focus on the spiritual aspects of it. And he's also extraordinarily based, but yeah. Isn't long pig human? I think so. Wiener Schnitzel. Yeah, that's the Austrians, also known as the developmentally challenged Germans. Apologies, our Trenum is also good. Yes, but he is also a lot more practical, and his videos tend to be also geared towards that, which can bring you a bit more into the worldly. So that's why I said specifically for Lent. If you haven't found Archimandrite Philip, I do suggest him also. Very pleasant British accent. He's an excellent fellow, and I have all the respect for him as well. Okay, so yeah, well, Emmanuel says, when learning a new language, everyone wants to start on how to curse all local slang instead of more practical things like, where is the bathroom? I remember back in school, you had types of teachers who would not let you go to the bathroom unless you knew how to ask it in the language they teach. So it could save you a lot of embarrassment. Something that surprised me was that it was optional to wear head covering for women rather than mandatory, which I thought it was. Also, most of the people sat during liturgy, which I didn't expect. Yes, I was told this by Baron Strawberry as well. Like, no one here sits except old people and pregnant women and stuff. So it's probably people trying to not have it be that how should I say, that sharp a change in when converting. But I am always in favor of just bring out the pews, take out the pews, I mean, and have chairs for the elderly and sickly and pregnant. I don't like the idea of pews, not one bit. But the priests and bishops, I assume, know what they're doing better than I do, because I can sit here and pontificate. They have to actually deal with people. Rest in peace, Patriarch Irene. Is that Irenaeus? I know the Patriarch of Bulgaria died, actually. Yeah, so but thank God they've reached an old age, so God willing, they've done as much of his work as can be expected, reasonably, considering where we were in the Balkans just a couple of decades ago. So yes, standing focuses your mind. Yes, and not only that, also bowing, prostration and things like that. I am very much in favor of being active in your prayers. It brings in the body into prayers, as does making the sign of the cross and all of that. And I really think that's important for physical development. Spiritual development. Obviously, you can be annoyed when you have to stand for 2 hours, but you learn to deal with it. All those who attended liturgy on Sunday, did anyone hear anathemas recited? I heard them in New York City for the first time in 50 years. I try not to get gleeful about it. We also had the Patriarch visiting on Sunday, my city, remembrance of the bombing raids in 1999. Wieczna pamięć. So yeah. Okay. Almost said something about the topic. So the topic is Christ is King. As I mentioned earlier, of course, it's a desirable phrase. I support its use. I encourage its use. But that's not what I wanted to talk about primarily. I want to talk about the meanings of those words. Christ is King. I think it is good to be able to remind people why we use these words the way we do. And on Twitter, I posted, it's a reminder he's not just King of Kings, he's also God of Gods, which is good to bear in mind. And before I went live, I also checked the English translations. What do they say, in Psalm 136, 135, if you're using the Septuagint enumeration. So yes, in the King James Version, it says, "Oh, give thanks unto the God of gods, for his mercy endureth forever." And then, "Oh, give thanks to the Lord of lords, for his mercy endureth forever." Right? The New International Version also says, "Give thanks to the God of gods, his love endures forever. Give thanks to the Lord of lords, his love endures forever." So, as does the New King. Sorry. Because this is clear. Warhammer Fund. Thank you, Pietra Garda. Warhammer Fund. Right. So when we talk about Christ as Caesar of Caesars, Caesar Caesaris Caesarium. So Caesar Caesarium. Yes. In Romania, we say Christ is Emperor, so you're all wrong. I said Iosarian, that's what we say in the Slavic world as well. But yes, that plays into what I'm trying to say, Caesar, right? So Caesar becomes this title of this person with the power. And this is why it's very important to remember what we've talked about many times, and we will have to talk about many times because it's such a massive misconception. You hear all the time Unitarians or Muslims or people of similar stripes, when they say, where did Jesus say, "I am God"? Saying that he is Lord is actually him saying he is God. But the thing is, the word God, as has been used in English, as Dieu has been used in French, Gott in German, Bog in Slavic languages, and Theos in Greek. It has been so specialized, so to speak, to refer only to the God of gods, that we forget that there are these far lesser spiritual entities that are called gods throughout the scriptures. Now is the time to judge the gods of Egypt, and etc., etc. The gods of the nations are demons, so on and so forth, right? So a god would be an entity that has power or dominion, right? And dominion is from dominus, which means Lord, over something, right? We also tend to forget how territorial the ancient gods were. But this is why we have this interplay between God and king. You didn't need to really emphasize, oh, he is a god king or a god emperor, speaking of the Warhammer Fund, because they wouldn't have had this sharper distinction between the two. And this causes lots of problems for people. I've heard apologetics, or anti-Christian apologetics, from non-Christian, especially Islam, but also, it wouldn't be apologetics, but criticism of Christianity from atheists and stuff, and certain academics who would say that this use of gods and all of that. That is clear indication that it was a polytheistic religion, yada, 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 and then later on developed into a monotheistic religion, which doesn't really make a lot of sense because there is actually a lot more evidence that you get polytheism after monotheism. And as multiple scholars have, or, I think even Eliade mentions this, the attractiveness of polytheism is that a lesser spirit is also easier to deal with. This is what magic is about, trying to compel spiritual entities to do something. There are multiple types of magic, but, it is. But as has been made very apparent in the Old Testament, the God of gods is a bit, almost seems unreachable. You can't bribe him with anything. There's nothing to offer him that is earthly, and he also makes this clear. I think I've mentioned, when the temple was being built, it was commanded that you don't make a fancy altar. You find 12 stones in nature and use them. This is supposed to be this reminder that you can't make this a pagan thing, right? There are all sorts of reminders to make sure people don't get too comfortable in cities, although they do get too comfortable in cities and then everything falls apart. If that sounds familiar to you, I have absolutely no idea why. But God seems almost too powerful to be dealt with. Despite this apprehensiveness of God to flex his infinite power, he doesn't really need to. As I talked to the fellow who jumped on Jim Bob's stream, God doesn't need to glorify himself for just no reason whatsoever. He's just crowning himself with glory and yada, yada, yada. There is no this divine flexing. God doesn't need that. That's a very pagan way of thinking, actually. But that's why you also get the Israelites going to these foreign gods, the gods your fathers never feared and stuff like that. Why? Because, well, yes, I do have to sacrifice my baby, but do you know how much you can get from that? The value on the god markets for a firstborn son. If God real, why he have unlimited power? I don't know. He really liked Star Wars. It occurred to me that being outside of time makes everything new and never get old. For us, ideas and concepts get old, even wonderful things. In heaven, they act as like they've seen God for the first time. Well, the problem with that, Ado, is that you're still using temporal thinking. This is why I said that we should really not try to, how shall we say, reduce it back to our way of thinking. If it's saying it's new again, that is a temporal relation. Saying God is before time is a temporal relation. Also, it should be noted, for those of you who have not paid attention to this detail, you might notice how from Abraham onwards, God is ever more receded. With Abraham, he appears to him in person, eats with him. And then it just starts going down to, every so often you get some type of revelation, and people really, a lot of times we have these reactions that because people are actually frightened. Because God being good and pure, his presence is a fire. This ties into the Orthodox understanding of hell. And you will see this recession of God up until the incarnation, where he is present in quite a spectacular way among us with our nature and everything. But what was I talking about? The little gods who can be bartered with, but they would also have considered them gods. They would also have considered them kings of certain types. Baal himself was called King of Kings. And what I like to remind people of is that's not really a highly specialized thing to say, because a lot of people would have considered, like, Zeus or Jupiter to be higher than the person in power. That's not a problem for people to say. So it's basically saying what the king is to you, he is to the kings. So people who have said, oh yeah, Christianity was developed from Canaanite religions. No, it's actually very actively correcting these things. When we see here, you shall see the Son of Man riding on the clouds, that's saying, oh no, it won't be Baal, the son of El, who is going to be riding the clouds as a storm god. It's going to be, the Son of Man. It's going to be Christ incarnate. So it's a very corrective approach. But people really like to read things into in a certain way to get to a particular conclusion. I can barely speak Polish after many years. I can still read it fairly fluently, but it raises my hackles when I hear Posobiec pronounced Posobiec. Posobiec. You're not going to win the C being read as it's. Sorry about that. I know the pain all too well. One diploma in gender studies. Oof. I give up. God and his realm are so alien that I will never understand. It's not just that the realm is beyond comprehension. God is completely beyond comprehension, but he again isn't like in a place, like a new dimension, and he's like sitting there like waving at the angels and stuff. But we're expected to love and obey a totally alien God in a totally alien realm. No, we do know these things by analogy, but we shouldn't try to temporalize that which is outside of time. God became man literally to bridge this giant gap, but what will happen in the eschaton is yet to be seen. On the Lord of Spirits, as they keep saying, you don't know what it's like to be a bat. You can't even understand what it's like to be a dog or a worm or a frog or whatever. These things are simply outside of our experience. So to try to constantly analogize is going to give you a wrong impression. And I would advise against it. So that is why we are so focused on the participative. I did a stream on it. We participate in the worship of God because that is what we see as knowledge of God, not propositional statements and the ability to abstract things in a correct manner. That's a very philosophical approach. There is lots of room for philosophy in theology. But for us, theologians are people who are the highest in terms of spiritual growth. That's how the term theologian is actually used in Orthodoxy. It's not used as an academic accomplishment. What can you unban my friend Ben Thorpe, aka Abel? Ben and Jim Bob have made peace. I don't think you have any beef with Ben. Again with the beef, it's a running. I will have to check on that information. I'm sorry, I don't just take people's word for it. The internet is a crazy place. But yes. What were we talking about? You can ask chat. Don't worry. It's not going to happen tonight, certainly, because I'm not going to be streaming for too long today. Oh, yes, which should remind me, I didn't mention this. On Thursday, we're doing a full stream on lingo nerdery. And next week, we're starting Latin lessons. I've finished a couple, which means I can fully present them to you. I'm still working on how exactly to present them, but the curriculum is being written. Geezers, one of the best words in English. In Australia, they pronounce the name of Polish explorer Paweł Strzelecki. Oof. Strzelecki. Strelec, that's supposed to be an archer, right? We say strelac, but I think it means the same thing. I've heard it somewhere, if I'm not mistaken. Right. Strelok. Yes. Damn it, I was on a good run. Yes, I did mention Thursday lingo nerdery and why it's so difficult to translate certain things. And it's going to be a full stream, like about 2 hours at least. Here we'll be finishing up in like half an hour tops. And next week we are starting Latin. The first lesson will be general introduction, the alphabet, and phonetics. Right. Where were we? Right, we were talking about the gods. How God means an entity with dominion over places. And when I mentioned like Psalm 136, I should also say the whole God of gods it's there in the Septuagint. It uses the word theos, right? In different grammatical cases, that's why you don't hear it. Ben has sort of gone a bit awry, and I haven't talked to him in quite a while. But we again, if Jim Bob says it's okay, then I will do it. Any hymns in Latin? What was? Okay, maybe for the end of the stream we'll do something. Remind me of that, unless I forget myself. So, formation of the Bible this morning, and I'm hooked. Super interesting learning that canon initially meant a rule of measurement in ancient architecture. Yes, a canon is a measuring stick. A canon with. Now, do I say 1n, or do I say 2n, or do I say with 2 and not 3? This is the truly important question to ponder. Christ is king. Truly he is king. Why is knowing Latin helpful? Knowing any language is helpful, but Latin has been so massively important in Western languages and all languages in modern languages in Europe that I think it's more for erudition than anything. It's not like you're going to get some massive insight into anything, because in order to reach proficiency to be able to read texts, it's going that takes years, not streams here. So I think you will appreciate the growth that comes with learning a new language, especially one that is so different from how languages usually work in Western Europe. I found it extraordinarily interesting, although I am a lingo nerd. But Serbian is much closer as far as how grammar works to Latin than any Romance language. With grammatical cases and everything has to be morphological and stuff like that. If you only had time to study Greek or Latin, which would you which should be prioritized. I would have gone with Greek, but I got Latin in high school, and there wasn't a choice. Greek is actually a lot more difficult to get to, unless you find like a specialized school. Latin is taught to anyone at a grammar school. How long that would depend on which exact department you go to. It's also taught to medical students. So lots of Latin available. Greek a lot more difficult to find. Helps with logical thinking. Yes, I agree with that. Latin lessons sound great. I will try to make them fun, but I will not, sugarcoat it. It's going to be quite a journey, but I think you will find it interesting. So that's the best I can. I can't even promise you'll find it useful. You get to flex on people. That's about as much I got for it. Yay, Posh, I'm catechumen at the Church of Blessed Saint John, the Wonder Worker. Do you know anything about the Blessed Saint John, Atlanta, Georgia, 33rd parallel? Saint John, the Wonder Worker? I don't remember Saint John, the Wonder Worker. Saint Nicholas is usually called the Wonder Worker, or I'm just completely blanking out on something. John the Wonder Worker. Oh, Saint John of Shanghai. Oh, yes. Okay, sorry, I wasn't. I wasn't used to him being called that. Okay, yeah. Oof, almost embarrassed myself completely there. Greek and Latin used to be staples of Western education. Yes, in large part in classical education, they're so present because you needed to learn them in order to access most of the reading material. But it's still important to learn them today. And if not important, at least I think things should be. What was it Peter Hitchens said about poetry? He said it will furnish your mind. And I like that. Right, so another thing I wanted to mention that is in line with this, are you in Belgrade? No. And I find the question offensive. How would you like to be asked, are you in San Francisco? Yes, Keenan, I'm a sued. Expose is a sued. Right. So it started with the whole Candace Owens thing, and then we had the commentary by one Andrew Clavin, and obviously, I'm not going to address you on the whole everything is anti-Semitic. If you get neocon enough, you will be seeing everything as anti-Semitic for no reason. I saw the word bridge mentioned, and that thing in Baltimore. But two things I massively had a problem with. One is obviously, he thinks Ben Shapiro shouldn't convert because that would bring, a rupture in his family and stuff. And what I'd like to say to that is, okay, do you think Muslim families aren't harmed in their internal structure by people converting? So, just leave them be. People, and I doubt Ben would suffer the same consequences, but obviously it's going to cause a rift. People used to die for it. People, again, to this day, people die for it in certain parts of the world, and rather excruciating deaths, might I add. So, oh no, okay, I shouldn't downplay the falling falling away from your family. That is genuinely horrible, but it also means that you have a higher duty to something. So language is more fundamental to identity than ethnicity. Can be. Definitely things like language and certain customs. I think if anything really can divide people, it's dietary practices. But language is also part of your culture, and you can, depending on your outlook, it can definitely be weaponized. I don't use that even as necessarily a bad thing. If Ben covers, he risks revealing his bald spot. He can always switch to a beanie. Works on a much larger bald spot for some people. No duty, give me rights. So, as I said, that's rubbish. That's such a fundamentally unchristian thing to say. It would be one thing if you'd have to then go, and beat your family if you convert to some type of cult, and then you have to stab your parents or whatever. That's not what's being asked. If there's truth, you follow the truth. And I hate that everyone who's like, especially the American conservative, like Inc. lines, like, oh, it's all principles, principles, principles. But then all of a sudden, no, you don't need Jesus. You need to have a good relationship with people. No, not if the price is falling away from Christ. These things are, again, with Christianity, you are called to always mend relationship and called to love and to understanding and all of that. But lines have to be drawn. If you have no lines, then Christianity is just something that's fun for you. And that's not the approach of Christianity at all. It's almost like some type of crypto prosperity gospel. Posh nubs. Nub is such a fun word, for God's sake. How can you tell whether a given language derives from another? E.g., can you tell whether Yiddish derived from Hebrew? I'm not too familiar with Yiddish. It's very, very German from what I've seen. But you can trace certain things when you find things, how things are written, how they're spelled. So, for example, if you get the term Docetism, which is a heresy, a very early heresy, it comes from the Greek dokeo, which means to seem or to appear, right? But that k sound, dokeo, was written as a C in Latin, because as far as the Latins were concerned, the letter C is primarily a K thing, a K symbol, and the letter K is used almost non-existently. It is there, but I think it's only a handful of words that actually contain the letter K. But then when you have the soft C, you get docetism, or docetismus. And then in French, you get that soft C becomes like an S, as it is in English, because it's through French. And why you say docetism. But if it hadn't gone through Latin, you wouldn't have had that. Like a German could have just said from dokeo, get like a docetismus. So that's why you can sort of trace certain changes and certain ways of writing or adapting to certain lack of phonemes in a language. I also say that the th sound, like the theta in Greek, very few languages have that sound. It exists in Arabic, it exists in English, etc., but basically nowhere in between. which meant that you would have approaches to write it, but just read it as a T, to just write it as a T, as it is in Serbian, like Theodore would be Theodor, just a T. In Russian, they decided to go with phonetic similarity. So a th is going to be similar to a f, like an F, which is why the name Theodore is Fyodor, like Dostoevsky. And then I know that the Turks adapt the th from Arabic as an S. So if you're going to get all of these languages, you know which filter was used, right? So there's no shortage of ways in which these things can be traced, because again, languages are living things. What the Schofield Bible does to an MS. Boom again. Thank you, Blue Skittle, for the $5. Yes. Again, people love spiritual fast food. They love abbreviations, and they love things being short and sweet, irrespective of how deleterious it is to you, to the truth, and also to your spiritual health. Did we start as squeakers and then chat it out? Given enough time, of course. You don't want to understand Latin, you need to overstand it. Body turquoise yoga pose. Okay, that's a good one. Pietragarda. Tenors are revolutionarily dead end, obviously. Tenors. What is that referring to? The tenors, I remember back in high school, us bassos and baritones would just wouldn't lay off the tenors. Oh, you're off to practice with the girls again? So that's why I found it hilarious. Oh, goodness. Alex F., you say, what do I think of the Catholic shift from traditional elements towards the use Easter formula? I don't like anything being watered down, which does not mean you're just harsh about things, in the sense that, I won't tell you, hey, you should accept Christ, but, add a couple of swear words and insults in there. That's the harshness I mean. But as I said, I like clear lines. I'm autistic. So I don't like watered down anything. Bosh, the root word for jealous and zealous being the Greek zelos, the Hebrew root is qana, being something similar to zealous in the Old Testament. I'll have to check in on that. DC Woodworking. Would it make more sense for modern people to understand God being zealous instead of jealous? No. That I can answer immediately. No. When God says jealous, this is playing into the whole Israel is the bride of Christ. God, right? And that jealousy is saying he doesn't share his wife. That's why it uses the term jealous, right? It's a continual thing, and how much even sometimes very, very brash comparisons are used to describe what bride Israel is being like. But no. That God being zealous, I don't understand how that would make any more sense. God ain't a cuck. I was trying not to say that, but I'll just mask it as reading what you said, Mr. Westford. Smash that like, I would appreciate that. Petra Garder just going off with the puns, the inner standing by not getting in there. Understanding the word, it's a very fun one to trace, but we won't do that here and now. Also, since it was already mentioned, and because we're talking about Claven's comments, that Christ is king and saying it to a Jew in some sort of aggressive sense, which again, I don't support chest bumping. Chest bumping God is sort of like very easy for the demons to use that, turn you into some type of Puritan. And when Puritans get a hold of people they don't think are being godly enough, fun stuff happens. That's what I'm thinking about. You don't try to become too legalistic or too chest thumpy about it, because again, there's a purpose to believing in God and serving God. And it's not about boasting of how good you are. That's why I said it's Pharisaic. A couple of weeks ago, we had the week of the publican and the Pharisee. The publican, who was basically a collaborator with the Romans, and a Pharisee who was, again, one of the big criticisms of Pharisees isn't that they were corrupt, but it's that they were so outwardly. They were so litigious, but only in the practical sense. When Christ says basically, you give a tenth of even the herbs you use for spices, but inside you're nothing. Basically, it's a criticism of the fact that the law is there to be the spiritual guide. Right? It's an instantiation of things. It cannot be followed just by the letter. It has a far deeper meaning to it. And the Pharisee is, sort of saying, well, thank you, God, for not making me like that guy, and the publican is beating his chest, begging God to forgive him. And as I like to say, it seems like people are just took from that, so I should beat my chest and thank God for not making me like the Pharisee. No. Okay, no. Posh, would you have many more viewers if we knew ahead of time when you are going to be streaming? Yes. So this one is more improvised. I'll be probably on Jim Bob's channel tomorrow. We're reviewing a response to his one of his videos. But on Thursday, I'll make it 8 for me, 8 p.m. sharp, and you will see it. I'll schedule it at least a couple of hours in advance. Today I managed like 50 minutes. That's not bad for my standards. I usually give you like 10. But I'm improving. Serbs seem to love my patron saint Tsar Nicholas II. Oh yeah, he's very famous here, which is why we shouldn't let Chase into Serbia until he gets married. What are your thoughts about Christian nationalism, especially as applied to liberal democracies? I talked with Andrew about it on this channel. I appreciate it in the low resolution, but I would really like to see how it works in a higher resolution of analysis. More practical things. I absolutely support. I'm not one of those, as long as you don't hurt anyone, that's, no one ever says that for benevolent things. So yeah, I don't like democracy in general. Klavan is a slang term for clown in Russian. We say Kloven, but yeah. I will not read that one, and let's not make it too easy for the algorithm. I do tend to make it easy for the algorithm, but Posh, would you have more viewers if you didn't disappear for months at a time? I'm starting to where actually we'll be having memberships, and I didn't want to set them up until I knew exactly that I would have a consistent schedule, because it would be extremely unfair to people. So when we start the Latin lessons, we will start the memberships, and that will keep me in line to be more consistent with streaming. It's so funny though. I'm not sure how realistic the concept is beyond being an interesting intellectual idea. No, it can be put into practice, but I just like to know. It would also really depend on whether you're doing it in the US or in Germany, or in India or wherever. What type of democracy, how it operates. Oh, I really have to make a meme for the people who say, we're not a democracy, we're a constitutional republic, because democracy is just the mob rule, But are you not aware that European countries have constitutions too? You're a republic, and you have a constitution, and you vote for your representatives. That's called a democracy. Is Serbia a Christian nationalist country? No. We are a recovering socialist country. And trust me, it will take some more time, because the boomers, as I may have mentioned, our boomers are like, oh, back in communist days, we all had lots of money. We had that type of communism. Everyone throwing money at you to not join the other side, and massive credits from like international banks and stuff. And then it all fell apart. But then, oh no, that was because of nationalism. So our boomers suck for basically the opposite of why your boomers suck. Orthodoxy has a lot of governmental support, for building churches and stuff, but it also clashes with the government. Our politicians absolutely love being, pictured in like churches and holding, candles and stuff like that. So it's an amicable thing on the surface, at least, but there's also plenty of tension. The communists confiscated, the church's lands and everything. So the churches are too happy about that even to this day, but neither is the government willing to give it up. So yeah, I would think Christendom coming back would only follow after Orthodoxy coming back to peoples that have departed from the faith. Yes, and also it will take having all of us taken down a couple of notches. Because when you're comfortable, if there's something to learn from, the old Israel, once you get comfortable, you start sacrificing babies in one way or another. And you will have anything killed just to preserve your comfort. Christ is Lord. Indeed, he is Lord, King of kings, God of gods, Lord of lords, all of that and more. Yes. So we'll be going off soon. I'll give you this cigarette more, because as I said, this is more of just to get back into streaming. I haven't prepared like a full thing as I have for Thursday. To give examples, I'll be talking about how Leviticus 18:18 forbids polygamy, but how you could counter that from other approaches linguistically. And by that I mean, if your linguistic parts of your brain are just in the nub form still. Thanks for the cigarette, Bosch. You're very welcome. Glad to be back. I do like pontificating at people. Great quality to possess. So yes, and as I said, we will be doing this continuously now for at least 2 times a week. If there's something extra to be done, that's going to be more relaxed. Sort of like this one. If I have a couple of things to say about a topic that doesn't really need a lot of time to be covered, it's simply, yes, he is king, and don't chest thump about it. Proclaim it as truth. He's Hosanna in the highest. Wonderful Counselor, the mighty God, the everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. And for any theological disagreement with both the composer of the piece, Georg Friedrich Händel, and who composed the For Unto Us a Son is Born, from the Messiah, I mean, and the disagreement with the performers, I think they're called the Tabernacle Choir, who are Mormons. It's the best rendition of the piece I've ever heard, and it's absolutely glorious. So good job, you neo-Islamists. Luckily, the Islam 2.0 doesn't forbid music. As the great philosopher of our time, Sneeko, tells us, music is the voice of Satan. Oh, Islam is so fun. I was due to do a talk on humility, but there wasn't many people there, so it didn't bother. Is that a joke? Because it works extraordinarily well as a joke. It's very, very thickly veiled. Sneeko got owned. Oh yeah, he's just an embarrassment. But people have to work with the types of converts they get, and they don't get a lot of quality ones. Oh, goodness. Yeah, so as I said, tomorrow we'll be reviewing something with Jim Bob, unless there's been some change of plans that I've not yet heard of. I doubt it. Jim Bob is very consistent on these things. So we'll be seeing each other again tomorrow, and then the day after. So after, not seeing me for like a month or so, you're going to get sick of me, which is a good balance to strike. I did see the vid of Sneeko getting wrecked. You have no idea. I still can't get over the fact that he thought the Council of Nicaea was a book of the Bible, and someone was probably giving him prompts, and he said Matt 37 as a quote from the Bible. Matt 37. So yeah, I thought I should mention that that's why he should have spoken, but then maybe it was a nicely layered joke. Okay, it is a joke from Mark Englishby. That B at the BY at the end of especially English surnames or place names, B means village in. I'm certain in Swedish, not sure if it's changed a bit in other Nordic languages, but when you hear that B, well, you wouldn't hear it, you would see the BY. It just means village, so English B would be English village. Okay, so in Danish as well. Are you Danish? Called English B? That would be glorious. Take that, Knut. Posh, you were a very good sport to help Jim Bob with his Christo game show. I wouldn't have taken it as being a good sport. It was just a bit of fun. We talked about whether some rules needed to be made. We'll see how he develops it further. I thought that after the first show was done, thinking back on how to perfect the game, I think there should be some type of penalty for getting things wrong. So also no, you can't ask to answer again. or at least just have the penalty. But you would get like you can just wait for other people to raise their hands, so you get more of a chance to get it right. I don't like that. What's this speaker's corner thing in London Hyde Park all about? Great congregation of theologians there, it seems. Long-standing custom. It is my understanding that speaker's corner has been that sort of thing for quite a while now. And that's why people gather there and debate. I don't know any details on it, I'm afraid. I just know that it's been a thing for a while now. And Muslims have been there for years and years. So just let me write this message. There we go. Posh, how did you get into streaming content creation? I got onto Jim Bob's show and people wanted to hear more, and I started making it after a long time of not being able to. He facilitated, in fact, gathering money for the new PC, which I needed, and everything. So it was by happenstance, but also a lot of help from people like him, like Andrew, etc. But I'm unnatural at pontificating. Half Irish, the drinking half. Yep. I'm fully Serbian, so both my halves are drinking halves. Sam Hyde started it off. Okay, I see. Hyde Park. I thought the penalty was getting the retard laugh. No, it needs to be made. You need to have, like, if you get a point for getting it right, you should have like half a point detracted for getting it wrong. So you can't just wait, and then you've got like 10 seconds to answer, and if no one raises their hand, then the host gives the answer and moves on to the next question. Things can be added like that, but we've got a game show here that has, you get 10 points per answered question, but 5-point penalty if you press the button, I don't know, to give the answer and you get it wrong. Also, like what I thought, lol. I saw you on Jim Bob a while ago. Oh, yeah. I was there. Like, what was it? It's almost 2 years ago now. I was there for a couple of months, almost every day, when there was the whole philosophy and theology arc going on. Bill Hicks appreciates the Sam Hyde joke. Answered one question. I honestly don't even remember the question. I just picked John McAfee because he was the only name I recognized. Fair enough. The protake, I mean, the true story is that Posh got 1K subs with one test video. That's a miracle. Should have written a book about it. It wasn't because I was that lazy. It's just we needed technical difficulties to be resolved. Will you take part in Based Boomer karaoke stream? If invited, I would. Because I've got, I like country music, so I know where I can take it. Posh got his start as JB's handler, yes. Oh dear. Right. So I'll be getting off now. As I said, tomorrow on JB's channel, reviewing some atheist dorks. Dork doesn't sound that insulting with a British accent. You need the dork. I should do a stream about comparing different insults from different accents, and how they sound. Because again, there are simply things that insults that don't work with different accents. Posh, can you read my comment? Which one? He can't keep getting away with it? Is that one? If not, let me know. Thank you, Posh. Posh, your thoughts on the Russia-Ukraine conflict, its roots in 2014 squabble? Definitely. Oh, between the patriarchs of Constantinople and Russia. It doesn't have their roots in that, but that is part of the problem and why. I won't be getting into it now, but definitely Constantinople, even Patriarch Irenaeus, or Irene as he is in Serbian, said that the Patriarch of Constantinople has sided with worldly powers. But yeah, it's just the most horrid thing imaginable. Posh, I remember a question during the Truth or Panel game show about blood human sacrifice with 4 civilization as the answer. You answered mine, but all of them. Could you expand? Sorry, not now because I'm about to leave. But you had different types. You had different cults in all of them. The Greeks. Human sacrifice wasn't that popular in Rome, although it did happen at certain points. There were types of burying people and stuff like that. The Greeks, the Lycinian games, you had people who would, drink baby blood and then burn the rest. So yeah, it's a lot more common than people would like to think. But yeah, maybe next time we get more into it, but you need to remind me. Atheist gobshite. The buzzwrecker with traditional Irish garb presented here. That one. Okay. Okay, I get it. You see, I'm too well reared to participate in these squabbles. I cannot tolerate country music. I'm a sucker for harmony singing, so that would explain about 90% of my attraction to country music. It's also the type of music I like to listen to just relax. It's very simple. It's rather fun most of the time, but it's got like the basics covered and harmony singing, and also can be very based very often. Okay. Just a Bone Thugs and Harmony. No. I'm from National. I hate stadium country. Someone said singing pop music with a southern accent isn't enough to call it country. Willie Nelson, yeah, some Willie Nelson. His singing is just so often not off key, but just misses tempos and everything. That annoys me. I prefer Waylon Jennings. My favorite one would still be Alan Jackson. He's got probably one of the most calming voices I've ever heard. Okay. Metrosexuals pretending they've driven a truck. Yep. Okay. So thank you everyone for being here for this restart stream. Tomorrow, Jim Bob. Thursday, lingo nerdery about translating things and the problems that causes. Next week, Latin lessons. So that's about it for today. See you tomorrow, and Christ is King.